Hey, I'm Max Soul.
And I'm Mello Soul.
And this is Architects of Soul. So, Mello, we're 5 episodes into Season 2. And the architecture map wall, it's getting deep.
That's right. It's all connected, Max. You can't talk about Bootsy, which is Season 2, Episode 4, which was last week, Bridging the Gap from James Brown, which was Season 1, Episode 1, without talking about
That was a great episode,
Yeah, it really was. Without talking about the man who gave them permission to be family.
100% Mello, 100%. Today is about Sly Stone, the architect who was recording gospel at age 7, producing white garage rock at 20, and inventing the bedroom producer, which we have to make an homage to because that's where we come from. Mm-hmm. That vibe at a Bel Air bunker by 71 and out of his mind by like 74.
We're pulling the strings between the Stewart 4, the Rhythm King drum machine, the democratic vocal that changed the DNA of every collective in the game today.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Deconstructing the man who took the church blueprint and used it to build a multiracial skyscraper. Now, Mello, people think that Sly just appeared out of the San Francisco fog, but we know better. He was a second-generation architect.
A total pedigree, Max. We're talking 1952. He's 7 years old, recording on the battlefield with the Stewart 4.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is his parents were totally into the gospel thing, and they built their whole house like this fortress of music for their son to be this great
prodigy, really.
Yeah, absolute prodigy. And here he is at this young age being a mastermind. It's unbelievable. Talk about like architect of reality.
And this is the first string. Like James Brown or Smokey Robinson, Sly's training was in the gospel harmony architecture. But while JB used the church for discipline, Sly used it for arrangement.
Right. He took the technical side of it.
Mm-hmm. And by 11, he mastered piano, guitar, and drums. He was learning the mechanical engineering of a song before he could even drive.
I mean, it's unbelievable, this kid. And his parents, they just made sure he had absolutely everything he needed. And he didn't just stay in a sanctuary. Well, he moved into the research lab. In the mid-'60s, he became Sly Stone, the DJ at KSOL. This is a masterclass in market research for any producer listening. So he was spinning the Beatles, and then he was spinning Aretha. He was watching how the frequencies of British rock and Memphis soul collided in real time.
He was actually A/B testing the new vibe on the airwaves. He'd sneak his own demos into rotation to see if the phones would light up.
Yeah, it's pretty smart, right?
Oh yeah, Max. He wasn't just guessing what an integrated audience wanted. He was measuring it in real time.
It's like the playlists today, you know, just like you slip your songs in.
Mm-hmm. And he realized that the soul and rock audiences were looking for the same house. They just needed a bridge.
And he was going to be that bridge. And he built it by being the bridge at Autumn Records. Most people don't realize Sly produced the Beau Brummels. They were a white garage rock band. He was the guy behind Laugh Laugh. He learned how to manufacture the British invasion sound from inside.
And that's the string to the Family Stone. He didn't guess how to blend black and white sounds. He had already produced them separately as a hired gun. He was the only architect with the blueprints to the both houses.
That's right. You didn't know you were listening to a white band produced by a black guy or a black music with a band that was integrated.
Exactly.
You had no idea. The guy was incredibly talented. And we're going to talk about that talent and what happened with it when we come back from a break. You're listening to Max and Mello's Architects of Soul, and we'll be right back.
Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, Max, we have to talk about the business of the pivot.
Oh, yes, the pivot.
It's 1967. The first album, A Whole New Thing, is an artistic masterpiece.
It was a masterpiece, but...
It's dense, it's complex, but the charts didn't care.
Do they ever really?
Not really.
No. And that's when the Suit enters the building. And we know who the Suit is. Clive Davis. Oh, my God. And I realized Clive Davis wasn't the Clive Davis that he is today at that time, but he was still a big guy at the time. And Clive was an architect in his own right. We know this, especially after we see all this history that he has. I mean, he knew what he was listening to. So he definitely saw the skyscraper that Sly could build. And he knows the foundation ain't paying the rent. That's what he knows. So he sits Sly down, and he gives him the ultimatum. He says, give me a hit or the project gets scrapped. In other words, you blow up the building or we gonna blow up the building.
Do or die, yeah. And that's, imagine being Sylvester Stewart in that moment, though.
Just imagine that.
You've been a prodigy since you were 7.
Yeah, your your parents crafted you to be this guy.
Yeah, you've mastered every instrument, and now a man in a tie is telling you your art is failing.
Can you imagine that?
Sly was offended, man. He called it Mother Goose music.
He called it Mother Goose music.
And he thought thought that simplifying the groove was a step backward.
But see, that's the lesson for your peers. Sly didn't just dumb it down. He treated the commercial demands like a user interface problem. I love that. I think that's so cool. He realized that the public didn't know how to read the Family Stone yet. So what did he do? He wrote Dance to the Music as a literal instruction manual.
Think about the strings here.
Oh, I love the strings, you know that.
Yeah, when he says, Cynthia, Jerry, blow your horns, he's not just being catchy, he's directing traffic.
That whole song is about directing traffic, about telling you what to do with this music.
Mm-hmm. He's showing the audience this is how the brass interacts with the rhythm. He made the new vibe accessible by deconstructing it as it played.
From the second those first horns start off, they just start going. And he tells everybody, and the funk is hardcore. And you know you cannot ignore the Larry Graham string because that's where the slap comes in. And we know the slap became part of the culture. So that's the structural steel of funk. So Larry was playing in a duo with his mom. They had no drummer. So he had to invent a way to make the bass do 2 jobs. He used his thumb for the kick drum and his fingers to pluck the snare. And so the thumb pop was invented, which, of course, became everybody's arsenal.
It became everybody's go-to, and every bass player's go-to.
Well, not every bass player, because not everybody could do it right. But let me tell you, if you couldn't thumb pop, you couldn't be really a bass player.
Not in funk and soul.
No.
In the studio for Dance to the Music, Sly realized the song needed a heartbeat that the standard 1967 drum kit couldn't deliver.
That's right.
So he told Larry to lean into that thumping, and it created a percussive frequency that literally forced people to move. It was a technical innovation born out of necessity.
Get up and dance to the music. That shit was badass. Yeah, but guess what? The most human part of the story, Sly actually fucking hated that song.
What?
Yep. He thought it was too simple, too poppy, and beneath his architectural standards.
Wow. That's funny because, it's amazing how many artists
That's true.
are not fans of their favorite song.
Sly was embarrassed when that song became
hits.
Sly was embarrassed when that song became a top 10 hit.
Huge. It's a standard now.
That's right.
But, Shaka Khan didn't I feel for you. I mean, she did not mind the song, but she didn't like the rap on it. She thought it was like a crazy thing. And now, of course, she's stuck with it because everybody follows her around with the Chaka Chaka.
Everybody.
I can see how it would be annoying, especially by now.
Can you imagine? This is our business.
But so many artists just are not crazy about their biggest hits.
That's exactly right. You think that song is that's where the whole, this is crap. Why am I doing this? But yet, this is what people like. It's simplicity. That's the most important thing.
Dionne Warwick once said she really couldn't care less how to get to San Jose. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but you're listening to Max and Mello's Architects of Soul.
That's right. We'll be right back. Sit where you are. Or sit where you're not. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. Max, let's go under the hood.
Let's.
Before Sly went into total isolation.
And we mean total isolation.
Yeah, he was already redesigning the way a band interacts with the studio. We're talking about technical expansion at his house in Bel Air.
And this is the cool part because it's about home studios. And home studios, well, basically, that's the way things are today for the most part. Most people they don't spend the money anymore because they spend it on their own studios. And considering that's what's going on right now, because that's where we are, in my studio, in my house, in my world, creating our world, which is the coolest fucking thing in the world. And that's called work-life balance. And that's where the architect gets blurred. Sly didn't like the cold. He didn't like that clinical vibe of the professional studio. He wanted the Soulfire to be accessible 24/7. So he had a custom console built at the foot of his bed. Jesus, that's pretty crazy.
Right. Think about that. Most artists go to the office to work.
Yeah, my bedroom has a bed in it.
Right.
My studio has the stuff in it.
Well, Sly lived in his office. He'd wake up at 3 a.m., roll to the foot of the bed, and start laying down
You
tracks.
think he was talking to Stevie?
Possibly. He was obsessed with tape manipulation, so he'd record at one speed and then slow the tape down to get that heavy, druggy vocal texture.
Sounds like Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Kramer were talking to him, too.
Yeah.
Being a bit of a geek freak, as it were, Sly, like most of the other architects that we talk about, was about pushing his boundaries. And in 1969, those boundaries were about making his house a giant remote control center, capable of recording in every room. As we talked about that, he had a console in his bedroom, and he wanted to be able to record in wherever room he felt like. He wanted it to be remote, and he bought this Flickinger N32 console, which was his bedroom command center. So he'd stay in bed for days, and he had this custom remote control unit for his tape machines, and as much as he wanted it, the greatest thing the RF did in 1969 was get us to the moon and back. Not so much for recording, though. For recording, there were too many dropouts, too much latency. It wouldn't work. So he put what we call mult boxes in each room of his house, and that allowed him to run signal from whatever room he wanted to record in, straight to the console, right to the tape machine. So Sly could record whenever he wanted to. So he could plug in his guitar, his Maestro Rhythm King drum machine, or his vocal mic into these boxes, and do this in any room without disturbing his flow. So no latency, straight to it, and it would be clean. Now, the places that he did use RF, well, that was by walkie-talkie, so he could use handheld transceivers to communicate with his engineers or security from different parts of the mansion. So that's where his RF came in, and his link. And he also would use like one of those leaky FM transmitters so he could listen to the works in progress and listen to them on the car radios and portable tuners around the property to see how the soul translated to airwaves. That's such a Sly thing. But it was ahead of his time. Nobody did that. You put a console in your room and you put a studio in your house, it was just in the same room. But Sly, he wanted to be able to record in the bathroom, the kitchen, the bedroom, wherever he wanted. He wanted that vibe. And that's what he was about. And that made him an architect of the modern decentralized home studio, which is what I'm sitting in right now and what Mello is sitting here right next to me doing.
This connects to the Autumn Records string. Because he knew how to produce commercial sounds, he knew exactly how to break the rules at home.
And breaking the rules is really important.
Yeah, he'd oversaturate the preamps to get that grit.
It's funny because today in the digital world, oversaturation is something important. Saturation is big in the digital world, whereas in the analog world, distortion was like, oh, we got to be careful. Only guitars wanted to be distorted.
It was a mistake then, yeah.
We go back to recording back in the day with two microphones, and that little bit of saturation then you'd get. Think of Aretha's Ain't No Way. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of distortion, or Ray Charles, a little bit of distortion. Those were beautiful moments. Mm-hmm. But in reality, the engineers probably cringing that there was a little distortion. But yet here today, we listen to that and go, oh, that's just beautiful. And they try to create that on today's recordings.
Yeah, he was coaching the family Stone like parts of a machine. He'd tell Rose, I don't want a piano line, I want a percussive stab.
Yeah, he turned them into instruments. He was architecting the integrated vibe through force of will. So he took Rose Stone, a woman who was a veteran singer, and he put her on the keys. He took Cynthia Robinson and told her to play the trumpet like a lead guitar. There was no hierarchy in the sound, but there was total control in the design.
And this is the link to the upcoming Gladys Knight episode. Gladys was a family unit, but they followed the traditional Motown architecture.
Yes, they stayed in the Motown architecture.
Yes, Sly was building a collective where the gender roles were completely flipped, though.
Yeah.
Cynthia wasn't a backup. She was the industrial grit of the band.
That's right, because Cynthia and Jerry got a message, they say. All the squares, go home. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. We're going to talk about the Rhythm King. Because drum machines, Sly was the man when this all started. And he made it to where it became something that we all integrated into our writing in the 90s.
Stick with us.
We'll be right back. Thanks for tuning into Architects of Soul. Our music is waiting for you. Hey, welcome back to Max Mello's Architects of Soul. So, if you like what we're telling you...
That's right. If you're picking up what we're putting down...
That's right. If this message resonates with you...
then please give us a like and subscribe. And don't forget, there's always a video version available to each podcast on our YouTube channel.
Right. If you feel like watching instead of listening,
That's
you
right.
can. Anyway, Mello, it's 1971.
Mm-hmm.
The peace and the love blueprint, well, it's gone. Sly retreats into the bunker. Ooh, this is bad.
Mm-hmm.
He embraces technological self-reliance, which is really good.
Yeah.
This is where he becomes a technological architect, which is great for all his technological knuckleheads.
Yeah, he starts using the Maestro Rhythm King. For the producers listening, this wasn't a programmable machine. It was a huge lounge act box with a bossa nova preset.
Yeah, think like a Lowry organ with a little rhythm box in it.
Yeah, but Sly saw the potential. He used that box to build the foundation of There's a Riot Going On. On Family Affair, he isn't using a drummer. He's using a loop before loops even existed.
Exactly. That's just, like I said, it's like that little Lowry organ. You know, you would press the button and it would play that little loop for you. But he saw it. He saw how that could do that.
And somehow he used it and made it funky.
That's right. He made it really funky. And that's where this whole looping thing came from. So this is a direct string to Marvin Gaye. Both of them went into the bunker to process the grit of the 70s. But where Marvin went orchestral, Sly went internal. He slowed the tempo down. He made the sound kind of murky and muddy, kind of funky, kind of dirty and raw. That shit was bad.
But here's the
Cross-pollination
cross-pollination that changed the world.
It sure did.
The Ghost Architect string. Even when Sly faded from the charts, he became the primary blueprint for the hip-hop era.
Yeah, because the beat, the loop, that sample, drum machine, that became everything. You think about the 80s. I mean, at the time I was at the Apollo, and all the hip, that's when hip-hop started when I was there. Early 80s, man. I saw so many DJs and so many loops and so many records and so many guys sampling stuff. I learned so much about truncating samples and how to make them loop that when I was writing music, I wasn't using a drummer. I wrote with samples and drum machines and stuff that I didn't even, when I was in school for music, I never even contemplated using. It's just amazing when you think about it. You know, you can't have the 90s without Sly's drum loops. You truly cannot. We're talking about Sing a Simple Song. That drum break is the foundation of everything from Public Enemy to Cypress Hill. And let us not forget Janet Jackson.
What song?
Rhythm Nation.
Well, I didn't know about Rhythm Nation because she has a drum loop on a bunch of her stuff with Jimmy and Terry, but Rhythm Nation's drum loop?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's
okay.
Sly. That's Sly. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis took Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, took 2 bars, sampled it, looped it, sped it up a little, and that became the backbone for Rhythm Nation.
Ah, okay. Well, and look at Dr. Dre, that G-Funk aesthetic, the high-priced synths, the laid-back behind-the-beat groove. That's direct descendant of Sly's late 70s work. Dre took Sly's architectural grit and polished it for the streets of Compton.
That's right. Because it's badass out of Compton, you know that. So Sly taught us that your flaws are your signature. His whispery, fatigued vocals created a new aesthetic of cool that Frank Ocean and Kanye West still tap into. All these people that he influenced, all these people. He proved that even if the architect stops building, the materials that he left behind can build 1,000 more houses. You can't tell me that it can't.
Couldn't say it better. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to take a little break right now, but
Stick around. We'll be right back to wrap this puppy up. You're listening to Max and Mello's Architects of Soul. Don't go nowhere. Hey, welcome back to Max and Mello's Architects of Soul. So Mello, we kind of grew up with this guy.
really,
When we were teen, he was kind of big, right? In the 70s, early 70s, Sly was huge. And then he kind of disappeared. And I remember in like 73, 74, hearing about some kind of crazy eccentricities. Like Sly would like not want to go to the show. You know, the
and
band.
not show up.
Right. He wouldn't show up. Or the band would go out on stage and wait for him and they'd be
there was no
playing.
Sly.
And there was no Sly. He just wouldn't come out. And you'd be hearing all these stories. And then all of a sudden, he just kind of disappeared.
He had a hit song called If You Want Me to Stay.
Right.
Seems like after If You Want Me to Stay, he could just disappear. There was nothing else
Yeah.
forever.
Where was he, right? He'd be in his house I mean, the music was incredible, and he really did. The whole drum machine, the Rhythm King, the whole rhythm box thing, those songs were so great. And again, as we talked about how many people use that, like, Family Affair and Thank You for Letting Me.
Maybe myself.
Those things were used by everybody, and everybody forgets that. All those upcoming DJs, writers, and creators, and all the while, Sly Stone just slipping into isolation, all alone in his head, which leads us to that most important topic. You remember, we talked last season about Amy Winehouse and Bobby Womack,
Anne Hathaway.
All the eccentricities. They're signs of a mental issue, and we as artists, we struggle so hard to get somewhere, and we fly so high to try to be that place. And when you fall very far.
And sometimes I think that maybe the mental illness gets lost in the brilliance because you expect your geniuses to be a little odd.
Yes, everybody.
And they usually are.
We all are. Yes,
Yeah.
we all artists are a little wacky. We get that. We have no problem being that.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to remember that you have to feed your soul. Mm-hmm. And sometimes artists get lost, and if they have nobody to help them, and one of the biggest problems is isolation. Isolation is
a killer.
It is a killer.
It really is.
So if you're out there and you're trying to get there and you're struggling and you're isolating, that's not going to do it. Don't listen to that voice in your head telling you need to be alone.
No, you need to reach out.
That's right. Reach out to the other artists. Reach out to other people. Reach out to us. This is not a world that's easy to fight by itself. And you see how Sly suffered. These are the things we create for a reason. We create about love for a reason, because that's why we live. Not to talk religion, but to talk the fact that people are meant to be with other people. Mm-hmm. We're not meant to be solo.
No. And we've traveled from the Stuart 4 to the isolated genius of the Rhythm King.
Yes, we sure have done that. And Sly, he taught us a lot.
That soul music is at its best when it's inclusive. It's at its most innovative when the architect isn't afraid to use new tools, even if they're just a primitive drum machine.
And for every peer in the music scene today, you got to remember that Mother Goose lesson. You may not like the simplicity of what you did, and you may think it don't work, but that simple hit, hey, that might fund your revolution. So use Sly's democratic blueprint. Let everyone shine. Let everyone shine, including yourself.
And remember the lesson of the Rhythm King. Technology is here to serve your soul, not to replace it. Use the tools to find a sound that is uniquely yours.
That's correct. And as always, we want to close with our final thought. And our hope for all of us, our art, our craft, and our creations.
Keep that soul fire burning. Protect your sound. Nurture your creativity. Own your voice. And remember the lessons from the giants who came before.
And yes, protect your masters and seek out wise mentors who can guide you on your journey. And until next we meet, peace and soul, y'all.